The Skywalker Saga. Rey wants us to show her place in all this, and here it finally is, the third trilogy and the final one to face in my challenge to beat Lego Skywalker Saga without dying in every level. One simple rule: if I die in any way, I must restart the level and try again. The prequels were easy overall, the originals were slightly tougher, especially that cursed speeder level. So how will the sequels fare? Will I need any training to make it through this? Or will my endless talent at everything I try carry me through? Let's find out. Our story begins on Jakku, where this old man immediately fails the challenge when he chooses tea over life. Uncle Iroh would be proud. My soccer ball and I quickly eliminate the troopers, and I even find one hiding. As the protagonist, I'm immune to morals, so no mercy is shown. Thankfully, when I'm captured moments later, the First Order shows mercy in order to get information out of me. BB-8 finds Rey, a lone survivor girl in the middle of the desert. I'm extremely surprised when she has access to a net launcher and a full-on jetpack. But if you're wondering how she survived on her lonesome for so long, well, I think this giant gun she pulls out of nowhere might be the answer. Now that we've been introduced to her, back to the whole imprisonment thing. Finn, the renegade stormtrooper, breaks Poe out, then immediately changes his mind. Why help the guy who literally just murdered all your childhood friends? Quick question, is the First Order so low on funds that they only have one battery that has to be switched between two sets of stairs just to move floors? What a system! Other than two pilots in the wrong place, wrong time, there's no combat this level, and away to Jakku I go. Like any good Star Wars flight, it's a crash landing. Anakin would be proud. Jabba the Hutt comes back from the dead and licks some thugs to death. Then Din Djarin helps to get to the brick hidden here. Unfortunately, I experienced my first death here when the game freezes me in place so a cute horned pig boy can trample me. Hey, if I'm gonna die, this isn't the worst way to do it. I will say there is no happier yet more disturbing sight ever than Jabba slugging across the sands of Jakku. In the outpost, Rey meets Finn, and here is where I decide to test which is faster, blast their bolts or me. Sad to say, these guys really need to get shotguns or something, cause lasers ain't cutting it. I also worry about the eyesight of the TIE fighter pilots, cause I just stand still for a while, yet they can't seem to hit me. How is the Resistance losing to these guys? We pop into a flying saucer, I completely ignore Finn's advice. I ain't no coward, just an idiot, and I have idiot's luck, which means these TIE fighters don't stand a chance. I would wonder how Rey's doing so great with next to zero experience flying, and these enemy pilots spending their lives in the cockpit doing so bad. But then I remember the performance earlier when I was just standing still, so yeah. Finding the Resistance seems like a hard thing to do, but thankfully it turns out they're swarming right above Jakku, so it's just a pass-off job, right? Nope, they're gone the moment the space battle's over. Wonderful. Flying along, I get stopped by who we all really came here to see, Han and Chewie. They have some gangsters after them, but Rey decides that's not enough of a challenge, so some ball octopuses get to join the fun. Finn gets grabbed by one of the monster balls, and Rey has to take a moment. I mean, she just met Finn like 2 seconds ago. I'm not saying I'd abandon him, but you know, I'd rather not die. I try to discuss it with him, but he's a bit too dramatic and panicky to talk to me. Thankfully, the ball of death really doesn't seem in a rush, so I finally free Finn and we get out of there. I make it to Maz's palace and of course bring the entire First Order down onto it as well. But heck, I'm the main character. What does it matter if everyone I meet and everywhere I go blows up? Consequences are for other people. Thankfully, I'm Han frickin' Solo, and these stormtroopers don't stand a chance. Especially this one crazy supposed boss wielding an electric baton rushing me. The guy with a gun. I pull an Indiana Jones and it doesn't work out well for him. Ancient weapon or not, it really is no match for a good blaster at your side after all. On Dakar, the Resistance base, Han beats Poe up for a bit, something about being his lackluster sequel imitator? I don't know. When they get over that, we learn about Starkiller Base, the huge version of the Death Star, which was already quite huge. But, you know, as they always say, bigger is better, right? Right? Why blow up one planet when you can blow up 5 at a time? Provided they are conveniently close to each other. Also, everyone is looking for Luke Skywalker lately, but here he is. Sure, he's 30 years younger, but he's still Luke. Are we good now? No? Still have to go blow up the giant super weapon? Fine, fine. Oddly enough, despite it being story mode, I can still switch to any character, and since he has such experience blowing up these things, Luke shows up again to help. These guys really don't know how to fight, so down they go, which actually makes their boss with invulnerable armor come out. You'd think she'd have actually showed up to help when, you know, her mini men needed it? Despite her being on the wrong side of us, we set up a very obvious electric trap for her. Thankfully, she teleports to help us out and walks right into the very bright blue shocky trap. I sneak up on her the second time around and boy, I get why she walked into that trap. While very protective, that armor sure blocks her from sensing anything. Turns out her men suffer from it too, but without the added benefit of protection. Again, I have to ask, how are we losing the war to these guys? Up in the sky, despite being fiercely outnumbered and outgunned, these go super easy still. The Death Star run was easy in this game, but I actually felt the thrill of the battle then. Turns out being so much bigger than the Death Star means it's actually much harder to defend, I guess. Works for me. Kylo Ren attacks Rey and Finn, and since they never wielded a lightsaber before, I make everyone use baguettes instead in order to even the battle. Everyone is born knowing how to battle with baguettes, after all. Kylo can't match my strength and bread until he pulls a sucker punch. Rey steps in with the Force to grab the saber, but she's never used the Force like this before, so of course she doesn't pull it free from Kylo, who's been training with the Force since he was young. Right? Right? Well, I try to make it so, but I guess Kylo feels bad for me and lets me take it after a while. I chase Kylo down and try and net him like a Scooby-Doo villain, but it doesn't work out, sadly. Likely because he's maskless, I suspect. While fighting him, I take a few bolts to the back, and while recovering from a Force push, I get killed by a flying baguette. I reset, trash Kylo with my bread skills, and the universe opens a hole between us to ensure more sequels can occur. Getting back to base really punches you in the heart as the game points out that Leia hugs Rey, comforting her for Han's death, though she met Han like yesterday, and not Chewie, their decades-long friend. With this, The Force Awakens comes to a close, and now can go back to sleep. The Last Jedi begins by a very uneven fight between Poe, the star pilot of the Resistance, versus a Super Star Destroyer and several other destroyers. For whatever reason, they send the TIE fighters at me in small numbers, and beating them is as easy as ever. Their strategic genius is beyond my limited view, I'm sure. They strike back shortly after by blowing up my ship. Leia saves herself, of course, and completely leaves Admiral Akbar stranded in space. But he seems fine. Underwater and deep space is like the exact same thing, right? Finn tries to escape the ship, but is stopped by Rose, who decides she wants to stop a non-government-run group of volunteers from fleeing if anyone would like to. I really think maybe she belongs on the First Order. She must have gotten on the wrong ship. Despite her threats, I kick her butt and flee. Unfortunately, I'm compelled to follow glowing lights and end up in the next cutscene. On to Space Las Vegas, where I run into the light and the game freezes, so I guess that's the last anyone ever sees Finn. I restart the game and open up an alternate universe where Finn doesn't lose himself to the light. We get arrested before we can reach the master codebreaker we came for, so we just recruit the random dude we meet in the prison cell. A perfect place to hire trustworthy people, I'm sure. I spend some time on the prison trampoline, once again proving that's not plot armor protecting the main characters, but plot cataracts that every enemy I face most definitely suffers from. Now, a good deal into the episode, the game remembers Luke and Rey exist, so we pop in on them. I can accept Luke throwing the lightsaber away like nothing, but then he completely ignores Chewie, his old close friend he hasn't seen in years. He never even once acknowledges Chewie, so I take matters into my own hands, trying to get his attention. He ends up cowering in fear, and I may have gone just a tad too far, but technically, he does acknowledge me. I'm just saying. Shortly after, Luke decides to attack me for not getting off his lawn. I try to reason with him, but he ain't having it, so this Jedi Master has to get quite the beatdown. Despite being one of the most powerful Force users in history, a Wookiee's punches hurt all the same, making Luke one of the easiest bosses in the game. I leave the planet, hurt Luke won't come with, and immediately run right into another First Order Resistance dogfight. I thought no one but us knew where Luke was hiding. These guys are everywhere. Rey reenacts Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker and turns herself over to Kylo, hoping to turn him to the light side while he hopes to turn her to the dark side. In the throne room, Kylo splits his boss in two. That would be horrifying, but C-3PO does it all the time, so I'm sure Snoke is fine. I get into one of the surprisingly harder fights of the game when I have to fight 8 highly trained guards. I'd like to point out to these dudes, their boss and their paycheck is gone. Maybe just turn super friendly to Kylo at this point. They don't, and this is not only one of the harder, but also one of the more boring fights. They literally all fight the exact same, so the only thing that gets me killed here is my impatience in wanting this fight over already. But the thing about impatience is that it just makes things take so much longer, as I have to restart and do it all again. So on I go, taking down 8 terrible bodyguards with a lot more caution the second time around. While Rey and Kylo bicker about couple issues or something, Finn breaks into the same ship to blow it up. Stealth is pretty easy, but at this point, I'm genuinely worried about these stormtroopers. Surely it has to be safer to go helmetless than to be blind to the world outside your helmet. While in disguise, I find yet another one of those bodyguards, and I can't help but wonder how much easier is he to kill with a blaster as opposed to a baguette. Turns out much easier. Who knew? I really thought bread was the ultimate weapon. I get into another fight with Phasma. Why the lady with blaster-proof armor is hiding behind an energy shield, I have no idea. Thankfully, her armor isn't drop an ATST on your head proof, and that solves a lot for me. Unfortunately, I discover the hole in my battle plan when I fall right through it. I would sue for injury, but you know, I'm dead. So I restart and come back, paying extra careful attention to the ground. Phasma's in an easy fight, but at least she's more creative than any of the saber fights, so she's a nice breath of smoke-filled air. I crash land on Crait, once again proving it's the only kind of landing available in the Star Wars universe, but at least it's a happy landing. Now I have a lot of credits I could possibly use to help the Resistance. Or, hear me out, I could get a gold Gonk droid with a mustache to follow me everywhere. I make the right choice, I'd say. Luke pops into existence and distracts Kylo for a little while Finn is supposed to find a way out. Thing is, I can't help but notice, Finn is just standing there doing nothing while I fight Kylo. Guess the Resistance is doomed after all. Thankfully, Kylo is really mesmerized by Luke, as we all are, and Finn has plenty of time to find his way back to the back of the cave, leading to the Resistance escaping doom and ending the episode. The Last Jedi felt like less was going on, frankly, but the fights were somewhat more difficult, mainly due to my inability to pay attention to something for longer than 0.85 seconds. Let's see how the final episode in the Skywalker Saga pans out, shall we? The Rise of Skywalker starts with flying through some tunnels, shooting TIE fighters who have zero survival instincts. I mean, if you're shooting someone, why fly in front of them where it's harder for you to shoot them, but much easier to get shot? They're the professional pilots, I guess, so who am I to judge? Or they were, since I blow them all up. Then I do a montage to amazing Star Wars locations like Dark Spire's place, Pipe's place, and Green Gas place. Back on Resistance HQ, Rey's training with a gonk droid before joining the Falcon team to visit yet another desert planet. Star Wars sure has a thing for desert planets. All the most important things seem to go on there. We're in search of for a device called the Wayfinder, so we can, find the way. We find good old Lando Calrissian, who we immediately ditch when the First Order discovers us incredibly fast, and we get into yet another chase. This time, the troopers fly now. Amazing. It really is, since all the jetpacks in this game last like 4 seconds for everyone else, which just means they get really cool views before they get blown up too. Lucky them. Chewie gets captured and then supposedly blown up by Rey's Force Lightning for shock value. Get it? Shock value? But moving on, I head to a little city to continue my search for the MacGuffin Wayfinder. I beat some criminals to death with my bread, then finally prove my stealth skills when I take out a passing patrol. This took real skill, I promise. These incredibly senseless troopers just make it look easy. I go through a courtyard taking down everyone one by one in full view, despite all of them being about 10 feet from each other. I think we can all collectively agree at this point that the First Order are actually the ones with plot armor, because how the heck are they winning this war? We erase C-3PO's memory because our story needs emotional trauma, and whenever these sequels need that, we pull out the old kill someone from the original era move. From there, we head to the ruins of the Death Star to pick up Palpatine's old map home. Kylo shows up yet again, and I finally have gotten tired of his pestering, so to battle we go. He keeps fleeing from me while trying to get me to go with him. Technically, I'm following him, so I guess it's working. Unfortunately, despite not dying, I am forced into a restart when Kylo cheats. He's too scared to fight the power of the gonk droid, and I'm stuck watching him from afar with no way to reach him. Not without using 0.0001% of my power anyways, and gonk droid doesn't care enough about this to do that. When I go through again, I do die quickly, though in the most suspicious of ways. Seems BB-8 is harboring some resentment, because when he holds down a button to allow me to platform across, he suddenly decides to leave the button, causing me to fall to my death. I had it coming, I'm sure. On the third go-through, Kylo goes down with ease, but it's heartbreaking to see Gonk watch us from afar. It's also a little strange when Rey leaps away and you can clearly see a baguette wander across the empty gap like it's nothing before Kylo appears holding it. These dark side powers are getting more and more unnatural, I tell you. I stab Kylo, say, "My bad, bro," heal him, then skedaddle. Apparently there's no hard feelings because next time I see Kylo, he's a good wholesome Ben Solo and helps me fight some more bodyguards who are this time guarding good old Grand Palpatine. This fight is just a copy of the Snoke bodyguard fight, and so while it's tedious, it's overall quite simple since they all fight the exact same. While Palpatine is having his fun, Finn and friends storm a Star Destroyer upon some horses. The enemy may have jetpacks, cool armor, and giant planet-destroying ships, but we have something they don't. The power of horses and a cool bow and arrow. Also, friendship. Ewoks have already proven to us after all. The more primitive the weapons in comparison, the better our chances. Being this is the final level of the game, the stakes are so high that they pull out the biggest boss they can. Evil BB-8. What a stunning final boss. He's a terrible shot, thankfully, if you just keep moving. Good to see that little supercomputer can't compute on how to aim. To my disappointment, he's not the actual final boss, and for what feels like the 10,000th time, I deflect lightning back at Palpatine. Grandpapa has one trick, and he's sticking to it. He's so ineffective that I even ride around on my gonk for a little, before moonwalking to victory. There we go! The sequels in the Skywalker Saga have now been beaten without dying on every level. The sequels were undoubtedly the easiest, and honestly the more tedious boss fights, but still, I had lots of fun. Thank you all for watching. I truly hope you all enjoyed it. Feel free to leave a like if you did, and subscribe if you really liked it and want to see more. I'm Shenanigan, and I'll see you soon, friends. Have fun, and stay wacky.